Hey there, audio friends. Welcome back to the channel. Got an interesting headphone for you today. So tell me if you've heard this one before. This is a Bluetooth open back ribbon driver headphone. Not many of those exist out there, do they? And that's why I really wanted to try this. So this is the Sineaptic SE-1. Now, I saw Passion for Sound did a review of this, several months ago. I reached out to the company because I thought, that actually sounds like a Bluetooth headphone that I would really be interested in. I do like to be portable. I am a dad, so I'm like, I have to listen. I have young kids, so I gotta be, I can't be closed off to the world with like an ANC headphone for a lot of time. And, I gotta be moving. I gotta be able to move. I can't sit down here at my desk all that often anymore to listen. So this headphone, I thought maybe would be the perfect headphone for me, right? Like it seemed to tick all the boxes. Plus, it's got an interesting driver in it as opposed to, a typical closed back dynamic driver Bluetooth headphone. So I wanted to give it a shot. So I reached out to them. They sent it to me. They did give this to me. I don't have to send it back to them. I've had it for quite a while. And, I've really put it through its paces. And I got to tell you, it's not a great headphone. And, Sineaptic, if you're watching this, I'm sorry to have to say that, but I do feel that this headphone, isn't good. And we'll go through the details of that here shortly, but it's one that I'm glad you made, because I think we need more headphones like this. We need more variety in the Bluetooth over-ear headphone market. The closed back ANC dynamic driver headphones that everybody makes, I just don't think they're that interesting for the most part. And while they function fairly well for like commuters and stuff, people that need that, I think there are a lot of people that we could introduce to the open back headphone if we could just get a decent one made, that's Bluetooth and convenient to use and sounds really good, at about this price point, which is $200. So let's dive in more to this headphone. We'll talk more about the specifics of it. We'll talk about what I like, what I don't like, and of course we'll talk about the sound. And then, ultimately I'll make some recommendations on where I think this headphone could go to make it, for version 2, to make it better. All right, so let's take a look. So it's a big headphone, right? It's big. The build is very reminiscent of like an Audio-Technica, what is it, like 8700 series, or the 80 series, right? Their large winged open back headphones. The build is very similar to that, which is to say it's very plasticky. It doesn't fit real snug on my head. Like maybe if you had a real big head, this would be good. But for me, somebody that has a rather small head, it honestly doesn't, I don't have the clamp force that I want. And it doesn't work real well for me to do chores and stuff because you can see it wobbles around on my head. Now, could I put a rubber band around this or a scrunchie or something and make it tighter and probably make it work? Yeah, I could. But do you really want to have to do that with a headphone? I don't think you should have to do that. So I didn't like this wing system. I didn't like it on those Audio-Technicas when I tried them, and I don't like it here. I would much rather have, a suspension strap style system. I don't think it'd be very hard to implement a suspension strap here instead of this wing system, and that would be recommendation number 1 for this company to do. So outside of just it not fitting on my head well, it is a fairly lightweight headphone. I think the pads are fairly comfortable. If I could get a good clamp force, I don't think I'd mind it all that much. So I think the rest of the build, while plastic, it's lightweight. I didn't have any problems with it as far as breaking or any issues like that. I just don't like the system that they've implemented here. Of course, I'd like to see a little bit more premium materials. Maybe it certainly doesn't compete with something like, the AirPods Max or anything on build quality. But I appreciate that they took a different approach here. I'd like to see it implemented a little bit better, and maybe they could do a little more testing with people with, you know, a various sizes of heads to get that to work for everybody. Flipping it over, let's look at just like kind of the buttons here. It's USB-C, that's good. You got volume up and down on it. There is a microphone in here. It's like all that stuff works well, and the battery life on this was phenomenal. I think I've had this headphone for like probably, I don't know, maybe not 6 months, but a long time, and I've maybe charged it like 3 times. Like it only died on me the first time, like the other day. So the battery is phenomenal on these. Really, really good. There is a 3.5 on here, right? So you can run it in auxiliary mode, is what they call it, where you can drive it off of like an amplifier. I did a little bit of both. I didn't notice a ton of difference driving it off of like my L3 from the internal amps. I would say it is a little bit cleaner, a little bit tighter, but not anything earth-shattering. And I mean, I think most people are going to want to use it wirelessly if they use it, so that's not really a big concern to me, as long as the interior amp, you know, the built-in amp sounds good, and I think for the most part it sounded okay. The one caveat with that is, and this would be another recommendation, if this is totally dead, you can't use auxiliary mode on it. Like, it will not work if the battery is fully dead, even if you plug it in to an amplifier with 3.5 millimeter cable, which I thought was really weird, and I thought was a big miss, because, you know, if your headphones are dead, then you're like, oh, well, that's good, I can plug it into my amp while I'm charging it. Nope, not with these, right? Like, it didn't work. So I think that's another thing that I would recommend, is figure out a way that if it is totally dead, you can still use the 3.5 millimeter cable with it. There are no ANCs or anything like that with this. It is, like I said, it's open back. You're not gonna get noise canceling with it. That's fine. It's okay. It does have a microphone on it. I haven't tried it yet, but you know what? Let's go ahead and do that now, and we'll get a little test so you can see what that sounds like in case you want to try to take a call with it or something. You know, just as I'm firing this up, I do like that it has physical buttons too. That's something that I appreciate. I don't like swiping and capacitive touch and all those things. I much prefer to just have physical buttons, so I'm glad that it has that. So what I'll do here, I'm going to go ahead and just turn on my voice memos on my iPhone. And we'll hit record. So now this audio should be coming from the SE-1 here. I've never been impressed with a Bluetooth headset's microphone. I don't expect anything groundbreaking here. Hopefully it sounds serviceable enough, so if you had to take a call with it, it would be fine. We'll have to see. Okay, so that being said, one of the other things that I really like about this headphone is the voice in here when you power it on and turn it off and pair it and all that stuff. Is very pleasant. Like, it's a female voice that isn't like robotic or weird. Like, it's just like a nice, pleasant voice, which you'd think that would be an easy thing for companies to implement, but it seems oddly difficult for people to get just like a decent sounding person in there. Anywho, let's talk about sound. Okay, so I've nitpicked the build, I've nitpicked the fit, I've nitpicked the cable system. Now I'm gonna nitpick the sound. This, if I had to tell you kind of a similar headphone that this would sound like, it would be the X2HR. It is like kind of a bombastic, V-shaped, exciting sound to it. It's a fun sound, but it's also not a very refined sound, is what I would say. And I guess that was a bit of a letdown to me, because I thought, because it had those ribbon drivers in here, I was thinking it would be fast, it would be clean. Not really what I found to be the case. I thought the bass is more powerful than I would have imagined, but it's also a bit bloaty and bleeds into the mids a bit. The upper frequencies it's very sparkly, but I think too much, like it goes too far into that realm, and it distracts me from the music, is what I would say. And then when we get into kind of that middle frequency range, which is really where I think headphones like bread and butter should be, this just doesn't deliver on the timbre. I found the mids to be thin sounding, and you know, if I could get you to paint a little bit of a picture in your head here about what the sound of the SE-1 sounds like. If you think about the Star Wars, like the holo tables that they have, where they, you know, you get to see the blue, you know, picture of the person, and it's kind of 3D, but it's also kind of like hazy and scratchy and things like that. That's kind of what this reminded me of. It's a little holographic in that it, like, there's kind of space in there, but also everything in there sounds a little thinner than it should, and not quite as refined as it should either. So I do think that some of that could have been taken care of. Like some of these issues that I'm presenting with the sound. Well, number one, some people might love it, right? So if you like big boomy bass, you might like this. If you like really sparkly treble, you might like this. But I think having an app where you could EQ it a little bit could have potentially corrected some of that. And maybe the driver is just limited, but maybe it's this tuning thing where if you let somebody have access to a little EQ app, maybe they could get it tweaked to where they would like it. For me, it wasn't a fit. So all of this, I'm sure, sounds very negative, and I suppose it is, but I'm glad that this headphone exists, right? Again, this on paper to me seems like it should be like a really good headphone and something that I would want to use, but just the reality of the actual product isn't that way. I hope that they aren't deterred from making headphones. I hope that they make more. I hope that they do another version of this where they fix a few of these issues, add an app to add a little bit of EQ, you know, make it more comfortable, make it use a suspension strap instead of this weird wing system that's here. If they could do some of these things and they could still get it to come in under a couple $100s, I would absolutely love to have an open back Bluetooth headphone that I could recommend to people. I would love to have that, and I would love to have one just to use myself. So it's one of those situations where, you know, I think this is kind of a swing and a miss for this specific headphone, but I think they're onto something here, and I hope that they continue to pursue it, and I hope that they do another round of this and refine it a little bit, and that they let me test it, and that I can recommend it to you when that one comes out. But I don't think I would recommend many people buy this one as is. But, you know, if you're curious, you know, you could give it a shot. I'm not sure what kind of warranty or return policy they have. I can't imagine they're selling very many of them, if I'm being perfectly honest. But, you know, I hope that they sell enough and that they think about it enough that they're willing to give it another shot. What do you think? Would you buy an open back Bluetooth headphone? If, let's say, it had the sound quality of like a 560S, but it was Bluetooth and it was more comfortable, would you buy it? Would you consider buying it? Have you tried this one? Would you consider it? I mean, what competes with it? What is there to compete with it? Maybe the Diva, Hifi Men's Diva, which is an okay headphone, but again, not a fantastic one. There's not much out there, right? So I hope they give it another shot. I thank them for sending it out. I appreciate that. I think that's where I'm gonna leave this one. So yeah, as always, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you watching. Feel free to comment down below on anything, alternative opinions, thoughts, questions, any of that stuff. And as always, hopefully I will see you in the next one.